All right, I got to hit the right buttons for this thing to work, man. Oh well, hey, welcome everybody. This is Amateur Radio Roundtable, and we're coming to you from Collierville, Tennessee, just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. We want to say hello to all you guys out there that might be listening on international shortwave on WBCQ on 7490. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know where in the world you are and how you're hearing the station. Again, we're relatively low power, kind of low power, about 50,000 watts, I think, coming to you from Monticello, Maine. Yeah, Monticello, Maine. So let us know, how you're picking up the show and say hello to us there. Also, just would like to invite you, if you are listening on shortwave and you found us on shortwave, you're listening on Thursday between 5 and 7 p.m. Eastern Time, but our show is really live. Actually, it's live on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and you can go to w5kub.com, w5kub.com, and you can watch the show. We have our own chat room. You can chat with us directly there. Forgot to mention our email address a minute ago for you listeners out there. The email address is just simply tom@w5kub.com, tom@w5kub.com. Shoot us an email. Let us know how you are there. Hey, we got snow down here. It snowed. We got 6 inches of snow. The temperature is 6 degrees right now. But here's a picture of one of the antennas up there at WBCQ. This is probably the largest rotating shortwave antenna in North America right here, and you can see it there. This was built a couple years ago. But anyway, you can see how it is up there. They usually always have snow up there too. If you want to listen to us on just an audio podcast, we're on everything from iNet Radio to iTunes to Google Play, you name it, we're there. Just do a search for W5KUB or Amateur Radio Podcast, and you'll find us there. Join our Facebook group. Our Facebook group has about 14,000 hams in it. We'd love to have you. Go to Facebook and just search for W5KUB. That's the shortest way. Or if you want to type the long name in here, you can type in Amateur Radio Roundtable, but I would suggest just typing in W5KUB and join our Facebook group of 14,000 people there. Let's see, did I remind anybody here to help us out right now? We need you to subscribe, if you will. Please subscribe to our YouTube. And let me see if I can help you there. Yeah, there. Hey, you should be able to see that. I'm pointing you in a general direction there where you can hit that subscribe button there. Hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notify button. That'll let you know when we come on with something new there during the week. All right, couple things going on tonight, man. First of all, winter storm across the U.S. We'll talk a little about that in a few minutes. But we've got a great guest on tonight. We've got Gary McKeaton, AB8A, with us with HamSci.org, and he's going to talk about ham radio and the eclipse and how all that plays together, and what we can do as hams to help collect data and make things, make things better, or at least understand them there. Hey, I've got a video, the last half of the show, I've got a video I did on the spectrum analyzer tonight that's going to show different types of coax, and we measure the leakage through the shield of each of the different types. And the reason I'm doing that is because I need some connector jumpers to go between the duplexer and the radios of the GMRS repeater that I'm building for some people. So I wanted the best non-leaky cables there, and it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. I think you'll enjoy that. And then we talked about this T last week. On the duplexer, we talked about this T and how it's placed. And in a duplexer, they've got this T. If you look right there, you see how that T is turned there in the center? It just doesn't look right, does it? But that's the way Motorola says that T needs to go in there. And we were all wondering, does it really make a difference? Well, I can tell you, it does make a difference. We'll talk about it in a minute. It does make a difference, and I can tell you about how much as measured on the spectrum analyzer and also why it makes a difference. I get it all figured out. Yeah, I got it all figured out. Okay, hey, let's go around the room here real quick and say hello to everybody. First of all, let's jump in here. Well, Glenn's up there first. It looks like Glenn. How you doing down there in Mississippi, man?
Well, you got more snow than us. We only got like 4.5 inches thereabouts.
Yeah.
Power hasn't blinked yet, but you get all those warnings and whatnot from the gas company and the power company saying, please, cut back or else. And I've gotten a couple of those today and tonight, but so far I still have power. But if I vanish, you know what they did to me. Um, but we're getting there. I got a piece of interesting news this week. Heard from the folks at Dayton. Now I am doing a forum at Orlando on Friday at 2:15, but Dayton contacted me this week, and I will also be doing a forum at Dayton this year. I don't have a date or a time yet, but so we're going to be doing the new Arduino forum or microcontroller forum actually there at Dayton this year. So we're going to be putting that together. But outside of that, we're just trying to stay warm and, keep rolling.
Well, all right, man. Hey, I'm glad you heard from them, and I'm glad you're doing a forum up there. We actually did a forum up there a couple years, and we attended for 39 straight years, and finally just decided not to make that 1,000-mile round trip again. And it was a lot of work for us to do our webcast and everything. So we're not going to go back again this year, but you're going to go and you'll represent us, I'm sure,
Yeah, I'll
very,
have to
very well.
fire up the camera and get some shots.
You'll
And I
have to,
think
you'll
you're
have
going
to
to
do
get
that.
Mark to do a live thing for you like he did last year.
Yeah, you'll have to do it. And I don't even know if we'll do a remote live deal or not. I think we may just, I may just sleep late that day. I don't know,
Well,
man.
then I'll just,
Yeah.
walk around with a camera.
All right, that's good. All right, let's go to hey, let's check in with Jim there. Jim, glad to see you tonight. Glad you made it. We know you're having your medical treatments there, and it makes you sleep. And man, I didn't think you'd be with us tonight, but you're looking pretty good, Jim. How you doing?
Doing okay. Glad to be here. And one of the, I'm taking 25 different pills a day.
Oh, wow.
But the most important pill I take is to come in here and get on the air or meet with my friends like here. So that takes my mind away from that. Sorry about that. Gary's going to talk to us in a few minutes about some interesting stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. And it gets me rejuvenated. I feel better. Now, there's a limit to how long I can participate, but ham radio for me has been a blessing. It really has, because I have to stay isolated because of the chemotherapy, but because my white count is very low. But I can get on the air and talk to my friends. So
Well, that's
it's a
great.
really neat thing.
When you're doing something you feel good about and you like it, it helps you. So we're so glad you have this as a hobby,
Thank you.
and we're glad you're
Yeah.
with us here.
I
And
do bring it up
yeah,
during the times I'm getting the chemo, and I made a comment to somebody today, because you have to sit in a recliner for an hour or two as
yeah,
I've got ports in my arm go into my heart, but that's not the important thing. Is I'll mention ham radio, and about half the time they look at me like, what does that
what is
mean? And I
that?
can say, well, I mean amateur radio. They still haven't got a clue.
Yeah, right, right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, look, hey, if you happen to fall asleep tonight, no problem. It'll be okay. Gary probably doesn't realize this, but Glenn fell asleep on a show one night, and we were about to call 911. We couldn't wake him up, and he was remote there. But uh, you know, uh, hey, if you need to take a nap, you go ahead and take a nap, man. It's
Okay.
okay. It's okay with
Yeah.
us. All right.
I, all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hey, Brett, what's happening up in? Oh man, I can't. Where are you? You up in Montana somewhere?
We're in Wyoming,
Wyoming.
and
Well, you know what? I mix up Montana and Wyoming all the time. I don't know why I do that. I don't know
yeah,
why, man.
I'm about an hour south of
Yeah,
where
yeah,
Katie and Dwayne Allen live,
yeah.
and well, we had temperatures between -20 and -25 last night, wind chills of -50, and we were just trying to stay warm. Most of our equipment stayed up. I had one thing I had to fix. I just had to give it some extra juice so it could heat itself. We're just trying to survive. I had one set of frozen pipes to unfreeze, and I took the heat gun out of the shack and went and did that. So we're doing okay. It's in a polar vortex. It's starting to be a regular event now.
Yeah. Okay, man. I'm. Hey, it was it was 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And I don't know what the chill was here. It was probably below zero, but nothing like what you guys got up there. Oh man. Woo.
Wow.
Oh man. That's terrible. Uh,
Yeah, but on the other hand, in Tennessee. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty cold.
well, let me say this. I'll talk about this for 30 seconds. When I was in the Air Force, I went to a Arctic survival school. They put me in an Arctic survival school for 2 weeks, and I think the chill factor was probably -20, -25, and they dumped us out in this place, and we actually we had some parachutes, and we set up a parachute under a tree limb for our tent, and unfortunately we picked a dead limb and it fell in on us a little later.
Ouch.
I spent 2 days in a hole dug in the ground, but I was young then. I was in my 20s, and I don't feel like I don't remember ever getting cold, man. And it was like 20 below. I don't remember getting cold. Now I get cold all the time, man.
Yeah,
So
well, we go out when I go out in this weather, I'm wearing thermal underwear and then a tracksuit on top of that, and then ski bibs on top of that, and then a parka on top of that. And no, I don't get cold. A
yeah.
little hard to move sometimes, but you can stay warm.
Well, that was kind of the way I was dressed out there for 2 weeks, and it was interesting. It was interesting. I kind of enjoyed it. My 10th day, I had this terrible nosebleed. It wouldn't ever stop, And they took me to an army doctor, and he said, "What are they doing to you guys out there?" And he said, "I can send you home, man." I said, "No, don't send me home. I only have 4 more days left, and if you send me home, I'll have to go through this again." So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, man. All right. All right. Hey, let's jump over to Gary McKeaton, uh, AB8A. And Gary, how you doing tonight, man?
Good evening, everyone. Glad to be with you. Glad to be part of the show. Doing fine. I'm in Northeast Ohio and a little bit east of Cleveland in what's known as the snow belt. But we've got maybe, about a half inch of snow so far in 2024. So we're actually doing pretty well.
Yeah, the snow that came through here looked like it just went under you guys this past couple of days here. Woo. But you guys get a lot worse than we do up here. Hey, there was a comment in the chat room about your call. It looked like ABBA, ABBA, and they want to know if you were a fan of ABBA.
No, actually, it's Alpha Foxtrot 8 Alpha.
Did I get that wrong?
So,
Did I screw that
yeah.
up? Man,
Yeah.
I think I messed that up. Why did I do that?
Well, now you know why I usually operate CW. It's a
Oh,
CW
man.
call sign. So.
Oh, I am so sorry. Oh, man. That's embarrassing. Oh, well. Woo, I've done a lot of other worse things, I guess. So, anyway, hey. Let's jump right into what you're here for tonight, Gary. And why don't you give us a little background about what you're going to talk about, and what it's going to do for us, and give us a little background about yourself if you want to. You've been a ham for a long time.
Sure have. It's been since 1977 when I got my novice ticket. Like a lot of people in that era, I was a freshman in high school. Got my novice ticket and went up through general, advanced, and so on and so forth. Got my extra late 1978. And that's when I got this call sign. It was randomly assigned by the FCC. So I've been continuously active ever since then. Not not a not a well-known contest or a DX or anything like that. Just somebody likes to plow the bands and have a few rag chews and make some contest QSOs now and then. Career-wise, amateur radio led me to a degree in electrical engineering from Case Western Reserve here in Cleveland. And then I spent 34 years working as an engineer, working for the world's largest manufacturer of arc welding equipment. And was very fortunate 6 years ago to take early retirement. So now I can call myself a full-time ham and do this sort of thing.
Well, that's cool. I think I think my ham radio at age 16, 60 years ago, actually helped me determine my career, you know, as it developed. So, yeah, a lot of people, that happens to a lot of people. Ham radio is responsible for how you turn out.
Yeah, that definitely did it for me. I got mine at 15.
Yeah. So, you know.
Yes, I did that as well. I got involved. I got my novice ticket as a result of being in the Boy Scouts and learning Morse code. And then I went to Case as well. And I'm glad to see that they're still doing HamSci stuff there. I recently visited their station at the top of the top of the Glennon building on campus, and it's well, they're doing a lot there still with ham radio.
That's great, Brett. Glad to hear that.
Yeah, I guess once you're a geek, you're always a geek, though, right? I guess we're geeks, maybe. Something like that. I don't know. Well, hey, tell us about HamSci. And I've got your website pulled up here. Let's tell everybody about your website here. And let's see. Well, I thought I had it pulled up here. I'm sure I got it pulled up. Yeah, there it is. And so people can go to it maybe while you're talking there if you want to. But this is your website there at hamsci.org. And this is actually focusing in on the eclipse here. So go ahead, Gary, just pick it up, and I'll quit interrupting, and tell us all about it. I'm sure questions will come.
No problem, Tom. Can I share my screen? I've got a little presentation with some nice graphics I think people appreciate. Okay, let me hit the share screen button.
Yeah,
hope
let
for
me
the best here.
Oh boy, what in the world did I just do? Let me see something. Security. I need to go to security, share screen. There we go. That should allow you now to share your screen.
Okay, how's that looking?
Pretty good, and I can resize it here to make it fit better. So just let me resize it here, and we'll get you going here. I got to hit the right button. There we go. And there we go. And I'll move you guys off the screen here a little bit. I was hoping I can't get you all the way off the screen.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think, well, I've got one little, let me see if this does it. Well, that'll help, I guess. There we go. I got it out of the way. We're seeing everything now.
All right, great. Well, let me talk about tonight's talk. What I want to bring up a little bit is what we call the HamSci Festivals of Eclipse Ionospheric Science. And what we're doing is basically we're recruiting ham radio operators to participate in events on Eclipse Day. But not just Eclipse Day, there's things people can be doing 24/7, 365 days a year. I'll also talk a little bit about the history of HamSci, our background, and why we're doing that. So let's get into it. So HamSci is what we call a collective. It's not a company. It's not a nonprofit. It's not even a club. We're a loosely knit, yet reasonably well organized group of radio and space physics enthusiasts. Some, or actually most of us, are volunteers. Some are professionals. You know, they're researchers, university professors, and the like. So it's quite an interesting menagerie of people that are interested in radio and science. HamSci has a couple different objectives. Number one is advancing scientific research and understanding through ham radio activities. A lot of research is going on in the world in thousands or millions of different subjects, but not that many of them involve what we call citizen scientists. The average person from the average walk of life can join in and do stuff with HamSci, and that's the crux of citizen science. Part of what we do is also encourage the development of new technologies to support our research and things that we want to accomplish. But it's a two-way street. It's not just hams giving to the research community so that we can all learn things, but it's also the research community coming back to hams and teaching us and give us opportunities to learn about things like propagation, the ionosphere, and space physics. So what we primarily want to talk about are the solar eclipses, especially the total eclipse that's coming up on April 8th, 2024. That's going to be transiting across North America. Eclipses have been around, they're part of space, right? They've been around forever. And humankind's always been fascinated by eclipses. But years ago, thousands of years ago, there was a lot of fear and ignorance that led to a lot of what we today think are pretty crazy theories about why eclipses came about. I mean, if you go way back, and if you can imagine if you're one of the ancients, maybe in ancient China back in BC or something like that, and you're sitting there one day and all of a sudden the sun starts to go away. This big black blob's coming across the sun and it looks like the sun's going away. And as people do, they want to explain things. Even if they don't really know what's happening, they try to explain them. Well, they use the fables and stories of their time to try and explain it. And one of their popular theories was that there was a dragon running across the sky trying to chase the sun, and occasionally that dragon would catch it and eat it, and we would have to wait for the sun to regenerate. Sounds kind of strange, but that's not just the Chinese. A lot of ancient peoples had similar stories where they were dragons or wolves and that sort of thing. But we know a little bit better than that nowadays. But even if you go back a few centuries before the scientific method was invented and whatnot, ancient rulers and people in power depended on astrologers to predict things like eclipses. Now, the astrologers weren't that good at what they did, but they took a lot of risk. Apparently, the story is if you were, an ancient king and your astrologer predicted an eclipse and you missed, unfortunately, the penalty sometimes could be death. So it was a high stakes game for those guys. But luckily, in modern times today, of course, we can predict when eclipses is going to occur. They're very accurate. We don't have to worry about anybody losing their life. But the nice thing is these accurate predictions allow us to plan studies of eclipse-related activities and stuff years in advance. And that's what we've done for last year and this year. Of course, we had what's called an annular eclipse last October, and all the activities I'm talking about today took place in October, where really they were kind of a test bed and a dry run for what we call the big event, the total eclipse that's coming along in April. It's a big event because eclipses don't happen very often. The next time the continental United States are going to be able to view a total eclipse will be out into the 2040s, well over 20 years from now. So that's why we want to get as prepared as we can to study them now and do our best. So eclipses, there's a lot of information you can go out and find on the web to understand what's going on, but basically it's pretty simple. The moon gets between the sun and certain parts of the earth and casts its shadow. That's really all there is to it. Is the moon's blocking the sun and we're getting a shadow. Now the interesting thing is, it depends on the position of the moon relative to the earth and the sun as how much of a shadow it casts. Last fall, the moon was pretty far away from the Earth. Of course, because the moon's orbit around the Earth is not circular, it's more egg-shaped. The moon was far away, so it casts an incomplete shadow. That's why we had an annular eclipse, or sometimes it's called a ring of fire eclipse. In April, the moon's going to be much closer to the Earth, so it's going to create a total eclipse. And that's what people are most excited about and cranked up about. There's going to be millions of people on the road trying to follow that eclipse and be directly in the path of totality. So from HamSci's perspective, what are we doing with the eclipses? Well, as I said, there was one last October, and I'll talk about some of the observations that we've been able to make based on what happened in October. But we're really here tonight to encourage everyone to join us for the 2024 eclipse. And I'll talk about some of the events and what they'll be all about. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time in HamSci studying and talking about is the ionosphere. And I think most hams are aware of what the ionosphere does and how it helps long distance communications occur. Signals leave an antenna on Earth. They head up toward maybe 80 or 100 or 200 kilometers above our heads. They get refracted back to the Earth at some distance, and that enables DX communications. The thing that we have to realize is the ionosphere is constantly changing. As points in the Earth change from night to day and then change back to night, the ionosphere has these layers, and these layers form up and they dissolve on a daily basis. And this is kind of a nice view of how at night we typically see 2 layers in the ionosphere, and during the day those 2 layers split into 4, and that sort of thing. So it's this transition from day to night, which we find particularly interesting, because that's what an eclipse is going to simulate, and I'll talk about that in detail. So, you know, before an eclipse goes overhead, the average day, you'll pick somebody, say in Texas in April, it's going to be daytime, and propagation, the ionosphere is going to act pretty much hopefully like any other day. But as the eclipse passes overhead, you know, we're going to, as humans, we're going to be looking around on the ground, we're going to see it get dark. Apparently the birds and a lot of other animals will get confused. They'll think it's nighttime. They'll start chirping and making noise and that sort of thing. But what really happens from an ionospheric point of view, when that moon gets between the sun and the Earth, the moon is blocking the solar radiation from reaching the ionosphere. And that's briefly going to cause the ionosphere to act and react as if it were night. So what we would expect is the ionosphere's reaction to be similar to the normal 24-hour day-night cycle, right? Because you go day, night, day, night. But there's a few differences on eclipse day which are important. The eclipse, so-called, you know, short-term nighttime, is a much shorter duration than normal nighttime. You know, the totality of the eclipse, especially in some locations like here in Cleveland, is going to only last 4 minutes. It's a very, very quick transition. The nighttime area is very localized. There's a narrow eclipse path, and it's caused by something, the moon, which is really traveling at supersonic speed. So it's quite different than the normal rotation of the Earth. The other thing is eclipses occur over spots, and eclipse motion is quite different than the normal motion of the sun. We all know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Eclipses can go in that same direction. They can go in the opposite direction, perpendicular, so on and so forth. So it allows us to set up experiments in different parts of the country and get total different readings and impacts from the eclipse. The thing that the physics and the science folks like to call this is kind of a controlled experiment, because we know it's going to happen ahead of time. We think it's going to happen so quickly, chances are good that we won't be affected by a solar flare or coronal mass ejection or some other thing that the sun may spew off because it's so active in cycle 25. So we've got a nice short window. We hope to get some nice clean data and some observations, and then from there be able to work on some theories. So what we're asking hams to participate in all these events, and we're calling these events, as Tom showed at the beginning on our website, the HamSci Festivals of Eclipse Ionospheric Science. Now, I've talked about the path of the eclipse, so let me show this little video here. I'll show this a couple of times, and you'll see the eclipse start over here in the Pacific Ocean and then move across the continental United States. So here goes. And there it goes off the coast of Maine and actually through the Maritimes in Canada. So I'm going to show this again, and notice how wide the path is. This dark area is going to cover a significant portion of a number of different states. And I'm going to stop it right there. The reason is these calculations, this light and darkness calculations, were done for a height above Earth of about 300 kilometers. So this is not what any of us would see standing on Earth. But this is what the ionosphere is going to feel, what the impact is going to be 300 kilometers above our head. So kudos to the science guys that figure this kind of stuff out, do these kind of calculations, and then can make these interesting animations for us. Okay. So our festivals of eclipse ionospheric science, we've got a number of different events. I'm not going to cover them all in detail. It would take quite a while, but I do want to highlight a couple of them. There's a couple of operating events on the air. There's a couple of hardware-oriented activities for the people that like to build things and poke around in software, and some folks that just like to monitor and listen. We've got some events for them too. We've also got some more scientific nature going on. So anyhow, the first thing I'd like to talk about is the Solar Eclipse QSO Party. For those that are involved with contesting, they'll be familiar that a QSO party is simply a specific time that's set aside where basically a lot of people get on the air and make quick contacts. For the HamSci SEQP, we're asking people to get on the air for a 10-hour period, as much of that 10 hours they can get on, whether it's a short time or the full 10 hours, and basically make short QSOs exchanging signal reports and grid squares. Pretty straightforward. You enter that stuff in a log. At the end of the contest, when you're done, send the log into us. What I like to call this, I say it's ham radio's version of a cocktail party, except our cocktail party is held in a really, really big room, potentially the entire Earth, where our radio signals are bouncing around. We're not particular about which modes people use. If you're a CW, a sideband, or an FT4, FT8 op, all those kinds of QSOs are welcome during the QSO party. And we've had some of the software developers, such as the N1MM group, straighten up their software and so they can directly support the SEQP for logging and then log submission purposes. The nice thing about this whole thing, the logs and the spot data, from the CW skimmers and other spotting networks, will contribute directly to the scientific research in the ionosphere. And if you're curious, this isn't the first time we've done this. It was first done in 2017. And if you want to learn a little bit more about what happened back then, you can go to our hamsci.org website. There's a search function, search on 2017 eclipse, and you can see some of the rather interesting results from that year. So of course, our website has a full set of rules for the QSO party and FAQs and all that sort of stuff. So no need to go into those details here. The other kind of unusual event is something that we cooked up. It's a contest for one-way signals. Some of your viewers and listeners may be familiar with a mode called Whisper, the weak signal propagation reporter, or its much improved kind of cousin. It's called FST4W. These are modes that are commonly used for propagation studies. Whisper transmitters will send out a 2-minute long call, and they'll pause for 2 minutes and then repeat. But the cool thing about that is, yeah, I may be sending out a whisper signal, but there may be 25 or 30 other stations who are receiving my whisper signal and sending a reception report off to a standard database called WhisperNet, and it's recording all those reception reports. So if you think of a few hundred people around the US transmitting every 2 minutes, and for each one of those people, there could be 5, 10, 20, maybe 50 receiving stations, all spread across the US or really the whole world. And all that data flowing into a database. At the end of a 10-hour contest, we can literally have millions of data points generated by all this activity. So Whisper is something fun to look into. It's not a real complicated thing to get into. The photo on my screen is a Raspberry Pi and a little what's called a Pi hat. It came from Tapper, the Tucson Amateur Packet Radio Organization. And this thing is pretty easy to build, put together. You don't need much of a power supply to run it. It's a 200 milliwatt transmitter and a pretty simple antenna. Whisper can also be run if you're on a regular transceiver. It's one of the so-called sound card modes. It's part of the WSJT software suite. And there's places you can learn quite a bit more about Whisper, whisper.live or whisperdemon.org. And this whole contest, this activity we've named it the Gladstone Signal Spotting Challenge. And again, we've got a full set of rules. And actually, the results from October of 2023 are now up on the HamSci website. and under the results tab. So you can see how folks did, and I think at the time last year we counted there were about 700 spots or reception reports recorded by the 68 participants. So there's a really nice multiplicative effect there. I mentioned some hardware projects. I mean, who wouldn't want to have their own personal space weather station, right? And HamSci has developed a thing called a GRAPE personal space weather station. And the reason it's called a GRAPE, because they work best in bunches. We've got probably 40 or 50 of these GRAPE receivers deployed across the US. And what these receivers do is they sit and listen to a single frequency day in and day out. They never get tired. What they're listening to, most of them, are WWV, the standard frequency and time station out in Colorado. The reason they're doing that is because they're watching for something called Doppler shift. Now, I'm not going to try to go into all the details here. It would take quite a bit of time to explain the whole thing, but basically, in the simplest sense, WWV is transmitting a very accurate signal on 10.0000 megahertz, for instance. But that signal goes up, refracts off the ionosphere, and comes back down to a receiver here, where Brett and I went to school at Case Western Reserve University. But what happens is this transversing this path causes a slight shift in the frequency. And what happens is the ionosphere, as I talked about those layers forming and changing from day to night, the ionosphere starts going up and down. So the apparent received frequency changes. And I'll show you some graphs a little bit later on that we can actually tell how much the ionosphere is moving or wiggling around up there based on our frequency measurements due to these GRAPE receivers. So go to hamsci.org/GRAPE, learn all about the current version of the GRAPE, the newest version of the GRAPE. There's bills of materials, how to build your own GRAPE, how to get the software, and how to run the whole thing, all on the HamSci site. This event is a little more scientific in nature, but we've got around 20 or 25 people we think will be participating. Simply put, we know that if a signal is transmitted, say, from Texas on 40-meter sideband to Oklahoma, many times the signal will take what's called a single hop. And it'll take a certain amount of time to get from Texas to Oklahoma. But sometimes signals split and they would take what are called two hops. Hop number one, and then hop number two, if you can follow my cursor. And what happens is that second signal that took two hops arrives a little bit later in Oklahoma. And the time difference between those arrivals, the time difference of arrival, if you're really sharp about this stuff, as Steve Serwin is the guy who came up with this experiment, they can go back and start doing some calculations so far as what's happening to the layer height, how the ionosphere is moving. Now, it's hard to do this on a daily basis because the ionosphere moves rather slowly most of the time. But during an eclipse, as I said earlier, with the moon moving at supersonic speeds, in just a few hours, Steve and his buddies that are running this experiment can actually get quite a bit of data on one hop versus two hop and go back and come back with some interesting theories about how the ionosphere is reacting. So I talked about a couple of our events, and one of the things I want to emphasize is, our festivals is fun. We hope people will get on the air and enjoy themselves in any of these different activities. But I mean, a reasonable question is, what's in it for hams? And there should be some benefit, right? And what we hope will come out of this thing, what will come out of scientific research, is basically an improved understanding of high frequency propagation. Why do signals go from one part of the earth to another, and that sort of thing. We hope to improve the models of the ionosphere. There's some very smart people out there who've developed mathematical models of the ionosphere. You can plug in the date, the time, where two stations are located, the solar flux numbers, and you'll get back a number, say 50. And that means you've got a 50% chance of making a QSO between those 2 points that you plugged in. We'd like to up those odds, improve those models so that you can go to one of these propagation forecasts and say you want to work a de-expedition in the Pacific Islands somewhere. Okay, maybe this someday the software on the website will be able to tell you that, hey, you've got an 80% chance of doing it on 20 meters if you do it between 10 a.m. and noon, and that way you can target your operating. So there's a lot going on there. But one thing I think is also a fair question is, what did we learn from the October eclipse? That was just a few months ago, but there are some things we can talk about. And what we're going to talk about are what we call observations, things that hams and people in HamSci and others observed during the eclipse. What we really can't talk about yet are what do we call findings. Some of these things I'm going to show you are kind of interesting things we saw in the data, but we can't explain exactly why they happened yet. That'll happen. It'll happen eventually. But the scientific process of developing theories, testing theories, doing what's called peer review, where you work with other scientists and other experts and you question one another and then present your findings and go back and forth, that sometimes takes years. So we probably won't be releasing any findings for a couple of years, but we can sure talk about some observations. So let's take a look. I talked about the grape receiver earlier. So this is a plot of some newly developed software that plots what we call this Doppler shift. This is how we measure the frequency movement of WWV. And you can see here at nighttime, because this is 02, 04, 06 UTC, at this particular station near Scranton, PA, the frequency was relatively stable. There's a little burble here that tells us the ionosphere was probably bouncing around. There may have been something that came off the sun. It's hard to say. But this little structure here, these series of bumps, we pretty much see this at dawn every day of the year. And not only at this station, but all the grape stations tend to see what we call a dawn chorus, or these dawn effects. So we haven't explained why that happens yet, but we do notice them. But what excited us on this particular day during last October's eclipse is the shape here is very similar, not identical, but similar. And that's, as I was saying earlier, that's kind of what we expected, because we're going from day to night to day again during an eclipse, just as happens in the normal daylight cycle. So when we see this kind of thing, it helps us validate that we think our equipment is working correctly. But now the work really begins trying to explain all this stuff. I mentioned that we've got some receiving experiments. Here's one where a station near Sacramento, California, was listening to a broadcast station, KKXA, in Snohomish, Washington. And this was the day before the eclipse. This is what we would call a control day. And you can see during this period, which is like 1800 to, I don't know, 22 or 2400 UTC, just part of the day, the broadcast signal went down in strength consistently, and which is what you'd expect. We mostly hear long distance AM stations at night, right? As the sun comes up, they tend to get weaker and weaker. So this was a pretty normal result. What we saw here on the eclipse day, we pretty much saw the same thing. We saw a decline, but here, when the eclipse went overhead, quite a bit different. Look at the enhancement in the reception due to the eclipse. So from an AM or medium wave DX's perspective, their signal was in the daytime going down, but when the eclipse passed over and it got dark, it was more like nighttime conditions. We got a bump in our signal. And then after the eclipse left, it went down very rapidly. So you don't have to be a ham. You don't have to have a ham radio license to participate in HamSci. There's certainly things you can do, even as a listener, to contribute to the studies. The last one I'll go over is some reception reports using the FST4W propagation mode. On the left is a graph of received noise signals from the stations on California's west coast, Point Reyes National Seashore, the old maritime stations, KFS and KPH. And this black arrow here represents the eclipse time. Look at the increase in noise level during the eclipse. Again, it's kind of a reception enhancement, if you will, that was similar to what we saw in the medium wave bands. On the right, this was another station where the station was looking at signal levels on received FST4W transmissions, and they were going down, down, down that day, and then the eclipse occurred, and you got quite a good bump. So again, these are observations, things that people are seeing. They're sending in their data, we're collecting it, and we're going to let the scientists and the PhD candidates and the master's students and universities chew on this stuff and try to explain it in the future. So, to kind of sum up a little bit, what we're hoping for is participation. Participation is key. The more hams that can get on the air and listen, the more hams that can transmit and operate during these QSO parties, the better. If this sort of thing interests you, or you just want to read a little bit more about it, you can go to hamsci.org/eclipse. We've got, and when you get to our HamSci, we've got a large Google group, over 1,000 members, and we've got some really sharp people there. We've got some people who've just joined and are still learning and asking questions, and we're hoping we're answering for them. But if you want, you can pre-register for some of these events. That gives us an idea of who's going to operate and from where. Please operate one of our events, join the TDOA and do some monitoring, build a great receiver. There's lots of stuff to do. So the last couple of things I want to mention is that just to prove that we're not, I'm just not blowing smoke out here. A lot of these scientific research papers have been published on very prestigious, by very prestigious organizations, presented at workshops, websites, and we've had a couple of people earn their doctorate degrees using the information from HamSci's research. So organizations like the American Geophysical Union, IEEE, the Electronics and Engineers folks, have published our works, and you've also seen things in CQ, QEX, QST, and you'll be seeing more in those publications very, very soon before the April eclipse. Lastly, I do want to acknowledge, as I said, HamSci is not a corporation, we're not a company, we don't sell anything, we don't raise any money, but we do have requirements for funding, and we are very generously funded by the National Science Foundation, NASA, and Amateur Radio Digital Communications. So I want to say thank you on behalf of all of HamSci to the U.S. taxpayers and to these other organizations for supporting us. Also, there's a lot of open source software and other types of things we make use of, and that's all very, very valuable. So that's good. So I will turn off the screen share, and we'll see if we got some questions out there.
All right. Well, yeah, there was one question. Is this presentation available for anyone that maybe would like to see it later, download it or anything?
That's a good point. We put this together for this purpose, for podcasts and clubs and that sort of thing. And let me think about that. We're trying to build a club activities page, and that may be the place to put it, because after a club's had a meeting or something like that, they can go there. So let me give that a little bit more thought.
Okay, just let us know and we can make an announcement here. Also, someone was hoping that you would be doing a forum at Dayton on this, but I do see that you're going to be doing a forum at Hamcation in Orlando on this on Friday.
It sounds like I'm going to be right behind Glenn. I heard you say, Glenn,
you're going to be ahead of
2:15. Yeah, I'm going to be at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we will be at Dayton as well. We usually have a booth, and we have a number of different forums on different subjects at Dayton for sure.
Yeah, I may have to slip over into there before I do mine.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions in the chat room there? This eclipse on the, what is it, the 8th or the 6th of April? I forget.
The 8th.
The 8th. It's going to come right through near here, southeast Arkansas, across through Little Rock and up through northeast Arkansas. That's only 2 hours for me, and we're thinking about driving over there. The problem I'm worried about is all the people that are going to go there. Brett can tell us that in his state, the population doubled during his last eclipse, and I hear that gas stations run out of gas, fast food places run out of food, and the interstates are so clogged up you can't travel. Do you know anything about that?
I heard the same reports. I know in Cleveland area, most of the schools are staying closed for that day because they figure the school buses and parents won't be able to get their kids to and from. So there's one subset of the population that's pretty happy about the eclipse too.
Yeah. Brett, do you have anything to add to that? Was it pure mayhem?
Oh yeah, we took the back roads because the interstates were gridlocked. This time we're not going to get totality, but I wonder if we're going to get the equivalent of gray line propagation when the eclipse comes nearby but not overhead.
You probably will, because again, the sun is illuminating the top of the ionosphere, and the scale of that is so much larger than what we as humans think about on Earth, that the impact will be very, very broad, much broader than the path of totality by far.
Yeah, Bill in the chat room says go to the eclipse zone 2 days prior and stay for a couple of days. I checked on hotels in Arkansas. I mean, we're talking this thing's going to be in April. I checked 3 months ago. Every hotel in Arkansas is booked, and they want $400 a night. Man, you just can't even get a hotel. Oh man.
Yeah,
So
that's
I don't
crazy.
know. I mean, it would be if the interstate wasn't clogged up, it would be an easy drive for me. 2 hours over. Leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, watch the eclipse at noon, drive back home. I could be home at 5 o'clock. But boy, if the interstate's not usable, that might be difficult.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Gary, it's really interesting. And by the way, I was not familiar with a call sign that you gave, KE6EE. I'm in the Sacramento area. He's about less than 10 miles away to this, looked on a map, to the south. On what bands should we be monitoring during the eclipse? It's not going to affect 6 meters, I guess. I don't know. So is 6 meters affected? How about 40 during the daytime, that kind of thing? What goes on in the various bands in terms of affecting F1 and F2, et cetera?
Well, the two comments to that. One is we would like people to operate their favorite bands and frequencies. So the events we've set up, like the QSO party, is on 6 through 160 meters. Because if you try to narrow things down and direct people in certain, well, I don't have an antenna for this, I don't have whatever. So get on and whatever your favorite bands are. And to your point, we may not expect things to happen on 6 meters, but what if they do? So it would be better to have some people on 6 and turn in their results, make some QSOs and that sort of thing. And we might learn something unexpected. We don't want to close our minds to the possibilities, I guess.
One more question, Tom, if there's time. What are the superstitions that the public has about an eclipse today? Because looking behind your head where it goes to totality, and it's, for some folks, is it a scary thing, or what's the reaction some people have if they're in an area where there is totality? What happens?
That's a good point. I mean, I'm more of definitely an engineer and not a sociologist and stuff, but I can imagine there's parts of the world where people are maybe, I guess you would say, less educated, that haven't had the same opportunities to hear about these events beforehand. And it probably could be a little scary for them. On the other hand, I've seen group photos from in every continent of people out looking with sunglasses, with eclipse glasses up at the eclipse. So if they're that well prepared, I hope that there's somebody there explaining to them what's going on.
Thanks, Gary. It should be lots of fun. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see if I can make contact with my neighbor who's was part of your presentation.
Ah, great.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions in the chat room there? Let's see. Yeah, I think a lot of the people are concerned about. They'd love to go see it, but I think it's going to be difficult getting in and out, to tell you the truth. So I don't know. Oh man, I'd love to go see it. We had one a few years ago that went through Nashville, and it was the same day as the Huntsville Hamfest ended. And I was going to drive from Huntsville up to Nashville and check it out. But again, we started hearing all the information about roads not being used and everything. We decided to watch it, so we just stayed in Huntsville and saw from the side. We saw more of a partial eclipse instead of a full eclipse. But I've never experienced a full eclipse. I'd like to do it. The one in Arkansas is going to be close. In fact, I don't have to go 2 hours to get to the very center because, I guess the 100% blackout part has some width to it. Doesn't it, Gary?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how much. Is it 50 miles, 75 miles maybe?
I guess my suggestion, there's a fantastic website called
Yeah,
GreatAmericanEclipse.com, I think.
yeah.
And that's where I got one of my pictures from earlier. But they've got a tremendous amount of information, and I'd rather send people there and get the facts straight than hear my
Yeah,
interpretation.
I've looked at that site, and of course it shows the solid black line, and it shows the gray on the sides. As you get closer to the sides, you get less of a eclipse. So I think I wouldn't even have to go 2 hours to actually see, experience a full eclipse. So I'm going to really look into that, and hopefully I'll be going.
Oh, what
I
you
think
need to do is find a friend in Arkansas and stay over with them. Come on, we got hams over there that'll let us stay with them.
Yeah.
You got family over there, don't you?
I don't know.
You don't know you have family in Arkansas? Or you're not going to admit that you have family in Arkansas?
Well, we're going to try our best to get there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Gary,
Tom,
go ahead.
yeah, we're getting some pretty heavy rain here.
Is that rain or hail that you were looking at? What is that?
I think that's rain, and then the infrared cameras picking up some of it. And the tower is in the background with the homemade 3-element Yagi, and it's here, it's with us. So, and we are projected to get, just real quick, rain for about a day, a couple of days off, and then maybe rain for a week.
Yeah.
So we might end up with some flooding here in California because it doesn't take much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, Gary. Hey, very interesting. There was a lot of comments in the chat room here about how interesting this presentation was. It's probably
very cool.
Probably one of the better ones that we've had here in a while, and it was really interesting. We learned a lot, and I think it's created a lot of interest to people. And hey, guys, just to follow up and more information, just go to the website hamsci.org, hamsci.org, and you'll be able to get all the detail there. Okay. Anything else you'd like to mention, Gary?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to meet all of you and to speak to everyone. And if people have questions, don't be shy, and please participate.
All right, very good. Well, hey, you're welcome to stick around with us the rest of the show, or go get some popcorn, or just turn it off. Whatever you want to do, you're welcome to do it. We thank you very much for being with us, and we'll talk to you later. And maybe as we get closer to the eclipse, maybe we do something again on the show here.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do a follow-up myself, where we've got a couple other pretty good speakers as well that they could get a different perspective on things. So I'm going to jump off and get some dinner. So you guys have a great evening and enjoy the show.
All right. Well, excellent presentation here. Thank you so much.
73 all.
All right. 73.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I'll look you up in Hamcation.
All right.
Great.
All right, guys. Hey, we're going to move on. Hey, I'm going to answer Glenn. Glenn brought up, we talked about this T last week. What difference does it make which way it's turned? And we thought, it probably didn't make much difference. But I got the news for you. I'm going to give you the secret on this when we come back in a minute. And then we're going to use the spectrum analyzer, and we're going to look at some various different coaxes about how leaky they are through the shield, and which one's going to be best for me to make jumper cables for the duplexer to the radio. So we're going to be doing that when I come back. So stand by, guys. We'll be right back with you. Don't go away. Or hey, this will be a chance if you want to go get some popcorn or something. Go get your popcorn right now.
I wished I'd have known about this a couple of weeks ago, because when I did that test on the amp, part of the problem I had was the coax was leaking. And it was affecting the results. So I'm looking forward to this.
All right. We'll be right back. Explore the world of microwave with ICOM's new SHF portable, the IC905. This all-mode rig covers 2 meters, 70 centimeters, 1.2 gigs, 2.4 gigs, 5.6 gig bands, and with the optional CX10G transceiver, it will do 10 gigahertz. This transceiver also has a few industry firsts. It's the first to support the 5 major general bands from VHF to SHF. The first PoE-powered RF module designed to be at the base of the antenna to eliminate signal loss. and the first to be compatible with amateur TV and analog FM mode. Other features of the IC905 include a large 4.3-inch touchscreen, real-time high-speed spectrum scope, easy digital mode settings, high-performance GPS antennas included, full D-Star functions, SD card slot. Aim higher and enter the world of SHF. For more information, go to www.icomamerica/amateur. All right, we're back here. Hey, while we were taking that break there, I was just talking with Jim there about Arkansas. He said, "Be careful going to Arkansas because of the police over there, the state police." I don't know if you guys know or not, but Arkansas State Police have one of the most aggressive chases policies in the entire country. They're very well respected and looked up on. And if you've never watched it on YouTube, just do a search for Arkansas State Police, or ASP. They've got their own YouTube channel, and you can watch hundreds. I mean, every day there are new ones. You can watch hundreds of high-speed chases, Arkansas State Police. And I'm talking some of, the average Arkansas State Police car, it'll do about 131, 134, but there are a few out there that chases have done 150 miles per hour. And then you got to watch the pit maneuver there. They are not afraid to do it. They will stop you. And they're well known. I didn't know Jim knew that, but they're well known for.
Oh yeah, it's state troopers, not state police. It's Arkansas State Troopers, AST.
Yeah.
And another one that you might find interesting from Arizona is called Fridays with Frank.
Yeah, I've watched Fridays with Frank too.
Yeah.
I watched Fridays with Frank, but that's one of our favorite shows, the Arkansas State Police, man. And I had a friend that. He was, I guess he's about my age. He's probably retired now, but when I was a young ham living over in Arkansas, and he was a friend of mine, and he actually shot some tires out chasing a guy across the bridge, the Mississippi River Bridge, back then, and he had a nice picture of him in the newspaper, where he had the gun out the window and like this, and he actually shot the tires out as they were going across the bridge. I don't think they're allowed to do that anymore, but I tell you what. They will pit you.
At 100 miles an hour if they need to.
You will not. You won't get away from them. Oh, man.
Don't mess with them.
Yeah. Okay. Hey. Okay. Man, I got tears in my eyes just thinking about some of these chases. Boy, if you hadn't seen it, man, tune them in. Gee. Hey, we talked about this in the show last week. I got tears in my eyes, man. We talked about this last week. Where is it? Why is this T? Why is that T turned that direction? And, that's between the cavities. You see the four cavities right there. One side goes to the receiver, one goes to the transmitter. And it looks like the T is in there backwards or not quite right. Why didn't you hook that other side to the other end of the T? And we thought, well, it's not going to make a lot of difference. But I want to tell you something. See these cables here? These cables are cut very specific lengths down to, like, I don't know, millimeter. They're cut very specific lengths for very specific segments of different bands. So when you connect those cables to the T, you've got to consider the distance. You can't just do it to the end of the coax cable. Because when the coax cable screws on, you have to actually add in the rest of the T to the center right here, because this adds length to the cable. If we put a 6-inch cable on here, it's almost 6.5 inches to the center. So this T, the reason they hooked it up that way is to get the lengths that they've calculated and found best. Now, okay, you say, why not hook it, why not just turn it around? Well, the thing is, guys, look. And Mark Pupo told me, and I've never really had any or looked at it, but they make a T that has 3 females on it. This has got, 1 male and the 2 female. So, but these T's have the male. So Why? Now, if you look from the bottom of this to the center, it's the same distance it is from the end to the center. So it's equal. All three directions are equal here. But here's the kicker that we didn't think about last week. Here's the kicker. To hook that cable up, you have to put that barrel in there. And if you notice, that barrel makes this distance from here to here about 3/4 of an inch longer. So it does affect it. And I tried the cables. I had the spectrum analyzer hooked up, and I tried the cables both ways, and I did see about 0.4 of a dB difference having it connected one way or having it connected the other way. But this barrel connector that has to go in there to connect that other cable on, it adds probably a 1/2 inch in there. So that's the reason. That's the reason it's different lengths. So I think that's solved right there.
Have you ever looked inside one of these guys?
Yeah, I've had them come apart and look at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hollow except for the rod.
Yeah.
So the white part doesn't extend very far, but there's a difference between brand names. This one is a generic.
Yeah.
And this one is a Switchcraft.
Yeah, I like the Amphenol brand. But many of mine are the cheaper. I usually take what I can get, you know.
You're better off sticking with Amphenol, because the results will repeat. It's not going to be this one's this way, a 1/2 dB. Because what you found is a huge difference. Yeah.
Well, let me say this, and Bill brings up in the chat room a good point there. He says, what frequency are you using to test the loss? You know, I mean, if you're using the test the loss there at, say, 75 meters, that little 1/2 inch probably wouldn't make any difference at all. So, Bill, thanks for bringing that point up. I made the measurements at 460 megahertz, which is the frequency band where the GMRS repeater is going to be located, and that's what the duplexer's tuned for, 462 and 467 megahertz. So that's where we did the testing. So I could say that, at UHF, that 1/2 inch makes a difference for sure. Just think about an antenna, a UHF antenna. If I had 462, a 1/2 inch is going to make a big difference. On HF, it's not going to make a big difference. So the higher the frequency go, the less. The higher the frequency go, the more problems you're going to have. So, for instance, look at this antenna. Not very tall, is it? That's the NMO antenna right there. Look at this, guys. I imagine if I measured there, it'd make a big difference. That's about 2.5 inches. This is an 800. That's an 800 megahertz. 800 megahertz antenna right there.
Yeah, it's quarter wave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a Motorola antenna?
Yeah. 800 megahertz.
I do a lot of Wi-Fi 2.4 and 5 gigahertz stuff where we have half wave and end-fed full wave antennas, and those connectors make a lot of difference. I've got to say, we use RF Industries tees and other things because they actually have a dielectric in there, and they tend to maintain the impedance. If you use a cheap Chinese one, it'll connect, but you're going to get some reflections off it. There's going to be a little bit of an impedance mismatch. Might not be devastating at UHF, but you never know. It could cause some problems.
Yeah, and Bill also mentions another thing, that using the PL259s probably are not the best connector for that frequency. 460 in connectors are probably better, but I'm working with what I got. So I pulled out of the attic a Motorola UHF duplexer. This particular duplexer here is designed to go 470 to 512. Which my 460 not, it goes 450 to 512, and my GMRS falls right in the middle of that. So this is the duplexer I used right here, and I don't know why, but Motorola did use the PL259 connectors, and they call them UHF connectors. You know, I don't know why they didn't use N, but you know, this duplexer is probably fairly old. I imagine it's from, you know, probably 1960s, 1970s maybe. So, you know, maybe they upgraded later, but obviously that the PL259 type SO239 connectors were what Motorola was using at the time, and I guess it works.
Yeah, Motorola invented a better connector. They invented a mini UHF connector, which they used on their commercial radios that worked very well. Nowadays, they probably use SMA.
Yeah. Well, hey, I've got a little video here, I'm going to show you guys. Now, I did a very unscientific test, and I'm sure I will catch a lot of flack in the chat room. And I've already agreed that it ain't going to bother me. I did it my way. They don't make a song like that, you know. I did it my way. Anyway, I did some basic tests, and to try to determine what coax would be best for me to hook the receiver and the transmitter up to the duplexer, because I've got to have a couple jumpers in there. And as I show in my video here, if you've got leakage between these two cables, the duplexer isn't doing you much good, man, because you're leaking the transmitter right into the receiver, and you know, man. Anyway, let's pull it up here and look at it real quick, and let's see how it goes here. Okay, all right. Let's see. Yeah, I did it anyway. That's a good one. Yeah. All right. So look, let's jump on this real quick. And as you guys know, let me just preface this with what we got going here. I have some friends here in town from my church that they wanted to be able to talk to family, and you know, they didn't know which way the best. They considered ham license and CB and everything else, but they wanted all the members of the family, grandfathers, grandmothers, sons, daughters, you know, everybody to be able to talk. And you can't do that on ham radio unless everybody gets a license. GMRS appeared to be the best solution for them because, I mean, the frequencies are near the ham UHF frequencies. They're up at 462 instead of 440. You can use repeaters. And the license now has come down to $35. You just pay the $35, and you get a license for GMRS. And it's good for the entire family. Grandmother, grandfather, everybody. They can all use it. And you're allowed to put a repeater on if you want to. Now I think there's like 21 designated channels that can be used in the radios. The certification they have to have, the certification is you can't modify, you basically can't go in here and input frequencies, you can't change things, and it has to be channelized, and that's it. Plain channelized. So I ordered a couple GMRS radios, mobile rigs, that had an easy way to connect for a repeater. Now, these radios are FCC certified for GMRS, both of them are, and they include the option to connect as a repeater. So we're covered in that aspect there. And the way they work, you take a little 3-pin data cable, and you hook the two radios together, and you go in the menu and you tell it to turn on relay and then reverse frequency on the other one, and you've got a repeater system, minus your duplexer, minus your antenna, minus, you know, all those other things. So just quickly, I've got a couple pictures here. You probably can't tell much about there. It's so much going on, and my shack is getting so cluttered here. But this is, I didn't have a metal rack anymore to mount anything in, and I was kind of desperate. So I just built me up a little 2x2 frame there with wood, it, and a little wood panel across there. You can see the duplexer setting in the bottom, and I mounted the 2 radios across the little thing there, across the little panel that I cut out right there. Let's see. So here's a side view. You can kind of it's real cluttered. I didn't cut the cable short because I don't know what I'm going to do yet. The cables will be cut shorter. I need to do some cable management, so don't deem me, or no demerits there. Here's a picture kind of looking from down under. You can see I have a fan mounted on the transmitter there, a 4-inch fan, and it will hopefully it's going to cool that transmitter because these things aren't made for continuous service. Now, the thing about these radios, there's no external connections or nothing that you can attach to. Nothing. I'm plugged into a data jack. The 2 radios are connected by a data jack between the 2, and that's what sends the signal over for repeater. It sends the audio and all that kind of stuff. There is no switching that I can easily pull out there. I was wanting to find some point like a carrier operated relay or something, when the transmitter comes on, that maybe I get a ground or a plus voltage, and I could put a little circuit together to turn the fan on just when the repeater's on. Well, there's nothing accessible there, and also when you put it in repeater mode, even the mic connections don't work, and nobody has schematics on these radios yet. So right now I got the fan running all the time. Now, I did order some thermistors, and maybe next week we'll talk about it. I took 4 little parts with a MOSFET, an N-channel MOSFET, and a thermistor, and you can put that thermistor right there on a heat sink, and you can set a little 20-turn pot, and you can actually set the heat, the temperature for that fan to come on and go off, which is pretty cool. It'll come on and run slow, and then as it heats up, it'll come up faster. Then as it cools, it'll actually turn off. So I've got to add the fan control to it. So let's see what else. Let's see.
Well, there's another way you can do that, Tom.
What was that?
Naturally, when you transmit, it's going to draw more current. So why don't you put
I thought about that.
one of the Arduino current modules in line with the power, and then you can drive an Arduino from that or get a signal out from it and use that to power your fan control circuit.
Well, I thought about that, but I'm trying to keep things simple, and instead of putting,
because I mean that's a simple little module.
Well, that's putting a computer in line with the power. And
well, you don't need the computer; just the module itself will give you a voltage out that you can use to drive your little fan control circuit.
Yeah. I looked at that and considered that, and that is still a possibility. I think I like the heat thing better.
Yeah, I think that yours is a simpler way. I was just saying there is a way to do it through the power without any real intrusion, other than putting it in series with the power line.
Now, if you notice on the back here, you'll see 2 kind of copper-colored cables, and that's what I'm talking about. To hook you see the radio at the top right, radio at the top left. You can see I've got a coax cable comes down on the right side to the duplexer, and that little skinny one coming down on the left side. I was trying to determine what is my best option for cable because I don't want those leaking to each other. Let's see what other picture I got here before I run the video. There's a close-up of the cable I built with the double shield on it. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And there's the other little cable. That's a Teflon FPTE, or I don't know what it is, but it's double shielded, and it's also silver plated, and that's a very good cable. So let's do this. Let's check the video out real quick. I think I got it ready here, and we're going to measure and see what's my best option for a cable to hook the duplexers up. So here we go. Here we go, right here. Andrews, this is like a mini hardline. You can see the... Okay, let me back it up here. Here we go. Okay, so as you know, I'm working on the GMR S repeater, and I'm thinking, okay, the duplexer, notches out one frequency and passes the other frequency. But don't you look at this picture here I got drawn here on this piece of paper? This is your typical duplexer here with the antenna, and your cable here, your coax cable from the duplexer to the receiver and duplexer to the transmitter. And if these two cables right here, if these two cables are leaky, and you get signals like this from one cable to the other, that defeats the purpose of the duplexer. So we need some really good cables to hook the transmitter to the duplexer and the receiver to the duplexer. So I started thinking, okay, what have I got here? I'm making do with what I have in the junk box, basically. Let's just play with some RG8 first. This is RG8. I'm gonna do some simple, very unscientific tests. It's not scientific, so comment all you want. But let's look at the analyzer here. We're gonna put it on a frequency of our repeater. So we're gonna go frequency 462.7. All right, that's one of the frequencies. And then we're going to make our start frequency about, let's just make it 460. And our stop frequency, we're going to make it about 470. All right, and that should give us just a couple megahertz each side of our frequency. All right, we're going to turn the tracking generator on. Tracking generator is on. So I'm going to take a piece of, I thought about using a piece of RG8 cable here to make our patch cable. I'm going to check and see what kind of leakage I get through the shield. This is some very old coax. I'm not sure how good the shield is, but let's just look. So first of all, I'm looking at the spectrum analyzer, and we've got kind of a base here, a little about 62, a minus 62 as our base. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to plug this cable in right here to the tracking generator, and I'm going to do this. I've got just a piece of wire stuck into the analyzer here, and I'm going to wrap it around the coax here like this. Just couple it with a few turns like this, and we're going to see what we got here. So, all right, so we had a reference of a minus 60, and I just saw it move here on us. We had a reference of a minus 60, and it looks like it's somewhere about a minus 50. So RG8 does have some leakage here. RG8 was a minus 50. Okay, so let's do this. Let's see if we can do something better here. So I'm going to take this off. And, when you can't buy something nice, you have to make it. And that's what ham radio is all about, making stuff. Let's see if this is any better. I took a piece of RG8, and I double-sided the shield. In other words, I took the shield off another RG8 and slid it on top of the jacket here. So we've got a double shielded RG8. Let's see how it looks. Let's see how it looks here. See what kind of leakage we've got with it. I just soldered this shield onto the connector on both ends. All right, so we're going to wrap our wire back around it here. Close to the same coupling we had before. Let's see what we get. Well, it's showing about a minus 50, so I didn't really see any improvement there. So the double shield RG8 was about a minus 50, about the same. I didn't see much difference there, so I'm not sure it's helping any at all. previous test I've done, this cable actually had about 5 dB more loss than the non-shielded cable. I don't understand why our measurement showed the same that time, but it's really not any better. It's really not any better. So let's try something else. Let's try a couple other pieces of cable here. Hey, here's a piece of Andrews. This is like a mini hardline. You can see the little ridges in here. This is like almost like copper. It's a hardline. And let's see what kind of leakage this got. So we're gonna put this one on here. We're gonna wrap our pickup around it. Wow, look at that. Minus 70. That's Andrews. That's a minus 70 dB right there. No leakage at all. In fact, you know, we started out with a reference of minus 60. That's even lower than our reference was. So it's really shielding well. All right, let's take it off. Let's try a couple more here real quick. I've got some other coax I want to try. Now, I had this in a junk box. Some of this in a junk box, and this is RG400. RG400. It's a Teflon coated silver plate, double shielded. Everything is silver plated in there. So let's try a piece of the RG400 and see how it acts as far as leakage. It's a lot smaller cable. All right, so we're going to wrap our pickup around it. And our pickup is wrapped around it, and look at there, we're at a minus 70. Remember, our reference with no coupling at all was a minus 60 noise level. We're at a minus 70 basically. I mean, that's just outstanding. Okay, let's take that off. Now, I want to tell you something about this cable. This RG400, I looked it up a minute ago. Hard to believe. The maximum frequency for this little skinny RG400 is 12 gigahertz. 12 gigs, guys, not megahertz, but 12 gigahertz. And it's about $11 a foot is what this stuff cost. I've got a little piece of, this is RG142. RG142 is very similar. It's very similar to the RG400. Let's see how the RG142 does, and see what kind of leakage it gets. It's probably going to be very similar to almost no leakage at all. All right, we're going to take our coupling right here, just go around it. And we're around it, and man, minus 70. So it has no leakage at all. That's even well below our reference that we had at minus 60 with no signal a while ago. So, I mean, this tells me that I'm probably on repeater. I'm probably going to use this to couple the duplexer to the transmitter receiver instead of my homemade double shield, or instead of RG8. So that's kind of where we are. Just give you a little class right here on what I discovered measuring the different coaxes and how well the shield is and how much leakage they might have. So I think this has proven to me which one I want to use. We have a great Facebook group. It's called W5KUB. Let me see, W5KUB. All right, so that was my unscientific measurements, but it did give me, you know, some comparisons. The RG400 is good. Again, the RG400 is double shielded. Everything is silver plated. I believe this is this one was this is the RG. What did I say? 142.
Yeah.
Yeah, RG 142, I think. It's just made by a different company too, but it looks very similar to, you know, it's the same type, I guess, jacket. It's silver plated also. All these are silver plated, double plated, I mean, double shielded, silver plated. So it makes a real big difference, man. So I'm probably going to do something like that, guys. Let's see, I had some questions in there. Coordination. I've checked. There is no coordination required on GMS. They don't do it like ham radio does with the voluntary coordination. In my city here, there are no GMRS repeaters. And that's the reason that I'm trying to put something together, because as you guys know, a handy-talkie will do about, maybe 2,000 feet. And, you know, a mobile might do, 4 or 5 miles maybe out in the open. So I'm trying to get them a repeater here. And
actually, Tom, one of the Obark guys is also building a GMRS repeater.
Now, who is that?
One of the guys in the Olive Branch Club.
Okay, that's cool. So I've got some hardline coming for the antenna. And we're going to be able to put, I've got the GMRS antenna, the repeater antenna here.
What does the antenna look like?
It's a, it's standard fiberglass type, ground plane type.
Quarter wavelength is what, about 6 inches or?
No, it's not that big. It's not that big. You can see it right here. It's got the, got the ground plate on it. It's about 5 feet tall. It does come apart in the center. It's got a nice heavy brass fitting in the center where it will come apart.
That should have a bunch of gain, huh?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how much it's got, Jim. But I know one thing. Let's talk antennas just for a minute. I had a couple repeaters on over in Arkansas years ago, a VHF and a UHF repeater. And, a Ringo Ranger, if you're familiar with, and some of the new guys might even not know what a Ringo Ranger is. I don't even know if you can still buy them. But a Ringo Ranger had, I think, 6 dB gain back then. The big one did. The small Ringo Ranger was 3 dB, and you get the Ringo Ranger was a 6 dB. Well, I had that on top of a water tower in West Memphis at 150 feet. And,
wow.
and the repeater would cover maybe 20 miles with that Ringo Ranger up there. We ordered a Phelps Dodge Super Station Master antenna. That's the fiberglass antenna like Jim's talking about. It was 21 feet tall. This is VHF now. 21 feet tall.
Whoa.
That the fiberglass was about 4 inches in diameter at the base. This is a massive antenna. It was a 6 dB gain antenna. But the Ringo Ranger 6 dB, it would work consistently maybe 20 miles. We put that Phelps Dodge Super Station Master antenna up there, and the repeater went instantly to like 40 miles. I mean, it was a major difference, probably because it had collinear elements or something stacked, and they probably went very high. I have no idea, but antenna quality does make a difference.
Most important part of your station is the antenna and the feed line.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm not sure about I'm sure this is built in China, this antenna I got here, but hey, it is what it is. Guys, I don't have a tower up anymore. I gave away my tower and everything. I use all wire antennas, and right now, I've got a friend coming over with a drone. We're going to put a rope with a pulley over a limb in a tree that's about 60 feet in the air. And we're going to pull this antenna up at 60 feet, and that's where we're going to operate, out of a tree. My little town I'm in, I don't think we have a building taller than 2 stories here. in my town. Anyway, hey, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's see. So no coordination needed down here. There aren't any repeaters anyway. Maybe I can become the repeater coordinator. This may be a total flop. I don't know if this doesn't work out well for them. I'll probably just junk out this repeater and tear it up for parts. I don't know. Now, so this repeater again, when you put these two certified radios into repeat mode, the mics don't work on them, so that input doesn't work, and there is no DIN plug or anything on the back. It's just a little 1/8 inch data plug with three terminals. I mean, tip ring sleeve. And I broke that line apart and I put my meter across it. I'm thinking, okay, one of them has to be push to talk or COR, and one has to be audio. Well, it's not. So what they're doing, they're running some type data stream from one radio to the other and controlling it. Because when I do the setup, all the setup on a receiver, it automatically comes up on that transmitter over there. So you asked about ID. My thoughts were I was going to add. Here's an idea, commercial idea. This is a Raycom. I've got it programmed right now for the repeater ID, but I don't think I can't find access into the radio anywhere to put audio in it. So that's an issue. The other thing I can do, I can use a little portable or something to key the repeater up. I can interface the repeater ID into that handy talkie and key it up that way. The rules say I think every 10 minutes you're supposed to ID. But I doubt anybody out here on GMRS is going to be able to copy the Morse code. So I've ordered a couple little boards off eBay for about $4 a piece, and they're 10-second voice recorders. Press a little button, you record your call letters, and take your finger off, and it's got another little connection here that will trigger it. So I thought, hey, I'll just put a voice recorder on there. Let's see.
You'll actually be surprised how many hams in this area have GMRS licenses as well.
Yeah, I don't know of any around here. Okay. Yeah, Brett's talking about collinear. Yeah, Brett, I'm very familiar with the collinear antenna and how you use alternating pieces of coax to build it. There's a lot of information out there to do that. Yeah, you can do it. I'm not going to try to do that yet. Let's see.
The good thing is that if you try to hang it from a tree, it's very easy. You just take the coax, you swap the braid, and you swap the braid and center conductor, and then do it again for however long you want to go.
Yeah. Tom, would that be fair to call it common mode currents that you were measuring? When it's leakage like that, or because
no,
I know what common mode is.
I'm not sure what that is. It's just I don't know. I don't know what you call it. There wouldn't be much there, to tell you the truth. I mean, the generator was putting out 0 dB, which is 1 milliwatt.
Okay.
So it'd be very low if it is any current there. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. So I probably will be using this, like this RG 400, probably something like this for the thing. My double shielded didn't seem to do much good, to tell you the truth, and I don't know why. It acted just about the same as just a straight piece of RG8. Although the first time I tested it, it was about 5 dB worse. But when we tested there for the show, they were almost equal. Let's see. Looking at the chat room here, let's see. Okay. Well, yeah, I can use a JPO or whatever, but it doesn't really have any gain to it, right? I mean, JPO is going to be what? I don't know if you get 3 dB out of a JPO or not. Probably not.
Well, there's a question, Tom. Does the GMRS licensing allow you to use gain antennas?
Yeah, hey, I'm no GMRS expert. This is new to me, although I've been in radio for 60 years. And it's like another world, believe me, when you start looking at this. The frequency and the way they got the bands set up. But you can run 50 watts mobile, or 50 watts 50 watts base,
Fixed.
On a repeater, or a 50 watts repeater. I don't recall seeing anywhere in there where it was talking about ERP or anything, so they may not got that technical with the GMRS. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, then you can put a Yagi on it and have all kinds of fun.
But there's a lot in like KC0EB, is it EBL? There's in the chat rooms talking about linking. I mean, they're doing stuff with GMRS repeaters like hams are doing. They're doing internet linking of all these repeaters, and they've got so many things going on. I'm not that far into it, and I'm not, I probably won't take it there. I'm just trying to get these guys a repeater that maybe can extend their range some, No restrictions on ERP,
Okay.
Brett says.
Yeah, just, basic power out of the rig and off you go.
So the interesting thing is, the nice thing is these two radios are FCC certified, and they are certified with the repeater option built into them. So we're really not violating anything like here now. I've got other radios here that have been converted for out of band that will transmit and receive in these frequencies. But of course, they would not be certified if the FCC wanted to, check or anything. That they really wouldn't be legal. They'd probably tell you to get off of it. There are a couple, 2 or 3 repeaters in Memphis. The closest one is at on a hotel, about 8 or 9 miles from here, and it will not reach here. It won't cover here. So the range on the repeaters there are really, really small. Can you internet crosslink ham and GMRS? I don't think so. Don't think so. All of my UHF capable ham radios can use GMRS frequencies. It wouldn't be legal for me to transmit. Yeah, that's true. That's true. The thing about the GMRS, us hams, we have the freedom to experiment and build our own receivers and stuff. You can't do that on GMRS. They've really got that tied down. They don't want you doing really anything outside of what it was intended for, and that's why it's channelized. Now here's a little problem I ran into. First of all, and even trying to program these from the menu, it took me 2 full days to read the Chinese instructions.
You can read Chinese?
Well, not very well, because several, and I read a couple of paragraphs here to everybody here one night, and in there he quotes Shakespeare in the instructions. One of the instructions says, do this, take this switch and do that, and he says, to be or not to be, and then he says, do something else, and it's just over and over, and oh man. Anyway, I finally got it figured out. There was no help on the internet. There was two YouTube things that guy had his put in repeater mode, and it just didn't work because it was missing some steps that were important. Another thing is these radios are made by Retrievis, and if you look at the GMRS frequency layout, GMRS and FRS share the same first 8 channels. So you can have an FRS radio, no license, and you can talk to GMRS back and forth. No biggie. The FRS, I think, can only run a maximum of maybe like a half a watt or something. It's those little bitty handy talkies you see at Walmart. So then you got channels, like 9 through 15 or something that are your main channels that are like 462.7000, 462.7250, those channels, and they're simplex. And then then they allow you to have repeaters, but the repeaters use the same channels as the 9 through 15 channels. All right, so the retrievers list them differently. I'm on channel 21 on the retrievers, but I've got a radio oddity. I bought a little radio oddity GMRS radio. Let me show it to you. And let me show you this radio. So I ordered this GMRS radio to work into the repeater. How do you like this for a radio? I mean, that's about the size of your hand. Pretty small. Really small. Anyway, so what I was saying is the Retrievus radios that I built repeater, they list their channels as 1 through 15, and then something like, and then it goes 21R, 22R, 23R. R means repeater. But they're using the same channels as the 8 through 15. Now, here's the bad part. I got the repeater on channel 21. The radio oddity has to be on channel 29. It has to be on channel 29 to talk to. Its display has to show 29 to talk to repeater 21. So that threw me off for a while. And I only finally realized that by looking at the signals on the spectrum analyzer there. I'd key up, and I could see the frequencies keying up and everything. And man, it was a nightmare. But I finally got it. I made a little short video, put it on YouTube, maybe to help somebody to get their retrievers put into a repeater mode. Woo! I'm out of breath because I'm thinking of the 2 days I spent trying to get that menu going there. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah. Mod here. Let's see. Trying to catch up on the chat room here, guys. Yeah, the Retrievus and the Anytone, and there's another one. They all kind of have the same mics, I think, but you got to be careful there, guys. I didn't want to get in there and start probing around in the mic connector because there is 8 volts in there and stuff. And in that microphone, the microphones have a lot of intelligence in them, for all the frequency settings, the frequency up and down and all that stuff. It's not just a simple, 2 wires push to talk and 2 wires hooked to a mic element. It comes out of basically a little computer in your hand. So that's an issue. I'm not sure how they're getting the audio. Well, to get the audio and the push to talk from one radio to the other is through the data jack, and they're doing something data-wise. They're sending some type data stream across there.
And Tom, did you find a chart or anything listing the frequency differences between these radios?
Well, every manufacturer has their own chart up there, and you can see, you can compare. In fact, if you compare the books, you get a little manual, a Chinese manual with each radio, and it will show you the frequencies, except it doesn't even show on this radiotomy. How do you say it?
Radioiddity is what you called it the first
time. Radio.
I think Tom's been testing the whiskey.
Can you read that?
radio oddity, and the other one is Retevis.
Yeah, okay. So they had the frequencies listed, of course, in both books. But on this one, when you got up to the repeater channels, they didn't have the frequencies even listed. So I don't know, but I got it figured out. We're making some progress here.
Yeah, but I'm thinking for the layman to figure that out so they can get to your repeater.
Well, hey, it's all good now. I got it figured out, and I put a YouTube out there, and as my friends use it, they can share it with other people, and if you want to do this, do that, and well, let's see. W8LV says he bought a Chinese oscilloscope right in the middle of instructions, and the next step, totally unrelated to anything. It said, turn the oven to 150 degrees centigrade.
Yeah. Tom, did you ever build any of you built the Pixie radios? Did you ever build the one called the frog sounds?
No.
They had very similar instructions to that.
Yeah.
I'll have to dig those up, but yeah, there's some crazy stuff in those instructions.
Yeah. Well,
kind of like help
a
on
lot
being
of
held
things.
Prisoner.
I had to go out. I went to Harbor Freight and bought me a welder because every instruction I got, they said weld this part and weld this wire together. So I went out and got me a welder, man.
Yeah, help! I'm being held prisoner in a Chinese radio factory.
Yeah.
But yeah, they some of those instructions are crazy.
Are we still live?
Yes,
we are. Yeah, we are
for now.
Yeah, we'll stay live for another 7 minutes, and yeah. Okay. I've got a ham radio. We're talking about fry the radio here. I've got a ham dual band mobile rig, detachable front plate and everything. And back when I was putting in APRS to it, I tried to interface the APRS to the mic jack. And of course, the mic jack on most all these have like +8 volts because they're sending voltage into that microphone because they got microprocessors in the microphone. Mm-hmm. And somehow in that in that mic jack, I shorted out something and basically destroyed the input of that VHF UHF mobile rig there at the mic jack. So it wouldn't work anymore. The control head still works. The mic jack just doesn't work there. But since it's a split system, the mic can plug into the radio itself and continue to still work. So, my experience was one time I messed around probing around in a mic jack there, and I messed things up. So I really didn't want to do it on these radios. There's not hardly any documentation out there yet, and just the fact that in repeater mode the microphone does not work. It tells me that somewhere, their processor somehow has disabled the input or something into that, possibly into the mic jack. I don't know.
Yeah, the Anytone mic jack interface has been reverse engineered. If you search the web for it, I don't know how perfect their reverse engineering is, but you might be able to do something.
Well, I'll look that up, but the thing is, the mic jack is active when it's not in repeater mode, but when it's in a repeater mode, the mic jack is not active. So that may cause me some issues.
Yeah, you'd have to hack it and not use the repeater mode.
If I don't use the repeater mode, then I could go more of a traditional repeater, where I already started building up some little control circuits. To pick up the carrier operated relay, then drive the push to talk, and then I could bring the audio over in. So that could be a more traditional way to doing it, but this makes it easy to get repeater mode on the menu. Just a couple button clicks and you're in repeater mode.
And they've got an odd mic jack too, don't they?
No, it's an RJ45. It's standard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's standard. Oh, okay. So, hey guys, just one last thing, man. We did a show on batteries because flying our Pico balloons, nobody's been able to make a battery work up at 40 to 50,000 feet. It's too cold, and the batteries just will not charge or discharge up there. Like we did a lot of testing with LiPo batteries here. We have a video that we put out where we actually put it in a temperature controlled box. We brought the temperatures down to like minus 40 degrees Celsius, and we were monitoring the charging current, the voltage and everything on both batteries, one discharging, one charging. And when you get down to around zero, the LiPo batteries, they cut off. They will not work. They will not take a charge. They will not put out a charge. Now, I was just reading here with this terrible winter storm we got, like Brett's got there with minus 40. Electric cars are not charging now. All these electric cars are being they're all junked out on the roads. They can't get them to start. People are having them towed to a charging station, and they will not charge just because the temperature is too low. They won't charge. So that's going to be an issue. You know, I guess most of the time the temperature don't get that bad, and you know.
Well, they're actually saying some of the charging stations aren't putting out, and I'm like, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. So here's a article. Of course, you can read these, but here's a Tesla supercharging station packed, dead cars lined up in the parking lot due to frigid temps. So they're just not charging. The cars won't run. So, you know, you better have you a gas car, at least one gas car for a standby, or a motorcycle. And I don't think you want to be on a motorcycle out during all this. Man, you know, I didn't think much about the batteries not charging in the cars. But, I mean,
yeah, that was a surprise.
That was, you know, it hit me off guard, but that verifies what we learned in our battery test here. Okay. Well, hey guys, let me just make a quick announcement. If you're out there listening on WBCQ, International Shortwave 7490, you've been listening to Amateur Radio Roundtable. This is a show about ham radio and shortwave. We're about to sign off, but if you will, send us an email to tom@w5kub.com, tom@w5kub.com. Let us know where you are in the world, how you're hearing the station. Also, if you want to join our show live, it's on Tuesday nights from 8 to about 10 o'clock. On w5kub.com, w5kub.com. 73, everybody. Good night, everybody. All right. That'll fill our 2-hour spot on shortwave.
Yeah. That Redovez company sent me a couple of those radios, by the way.
Did you get, which one did you get? Did you get the RA87?
I don't know. One is a little bit different from the other. Then another company wanted to send one to me. And I said no, and I ended up not doing a review of them. They were free, but
yeah.
No, thank you. I didn't check to see if they were clean.
Yeah, I actually paid for these to get them to put them on.
About $100 a piece.
They what?
About $100 a piece.
Well, I think the two of them they had a price, two of them for like $319 or something like that.
Okay, so 160
the RT95 and the 778 UV, those are the ones that don't have digital modes. Go for about $100 if you shop around. I have one.
Yeah.
It's pretty. I keep it in my shack and just keep it tuned to the local repeaters all the time.
Yeah.
And it works pretty well. It's a 25-watt rig. It's not super powerful, but I have a good antenna up there. And you know, what can I say? I wish it had. There were some features I wish it had.
Well, I've got a question. I got a question for you about the power. Let me tell you, this radiodity, whatever it is, it's supposed to be a 25-watt radio.
Yeah.
We ordered 3. My friends ordered a couple. I ordered 1. Put it on a bird watt meter, and even tried it on an antenna and a bird watt meter and a real high-end 50 ohm dummy load. And instead of 25 watts, I was getting like 12 to 14 watts. So I sent it back. Mm-hmm. They sent me another one. The 25 watt radio would do about 14 to 16 watts. I checked the other two that we bought. They're doing about 15 watts for 25
did you
watt.
check the power setting for the channel you were on?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
it
I
has
did.
3 power levels, and I
Yeah,
discovered that the default was not the highest power.
the medium power and low power is just about right on what the book says, but when you go to high power, it's not there. Also, the Retrievus radios here, they're supposed to be what are these Retrievus? They're oh man, I'm about to forget what they are here. I was gonna look at the book here. Okay, the Retrievus. If I'm saying it right, and I don't think I'm saying it right. I think it's supposed to be a 40 watt. I think it's a 40 watt radio.
Which model?
It's the RA87. Look and tell me what. Can you look it up real quick?
RA87. Okay, that's not the one I have.
The RA87. We got specifications here. Anyway,
On a bird watt meter, I didn't get anywhere near the output that they claimed.
yeah. It's
Okay,
like
the
it's
R87. I got the specs here. It's supposed to be a 40 watt GMRS rig.
yeah 40 watt. It'll do about 25 watts. And both of them, I got two of them. The two 40 watt radios, they'll do about 25 watts. And that's what I found with about every Chinese radio I've tested here.
Yeah, I checked it with a bird watt meter, and I knew a bird dummy load that's good to like 10 gigs. And the output just wasn't there. And I had plenty of voltage on it too. I thought this was the box I had them in, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I was afraid that it would have harmonics or other problems. And if you'll notice, most of the talking YouTube heads, they will all have like the same antenna.
Yeah.
From one company in particular, you'll find they all have that antenna. Then a couple of weeks later, they all have something else. It's because they're getting it for free, which is the offers I get, and I just turn them down now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I shouldn't be doing. I don't know.
Well, and Mark asked me, couldn't I turn the repeat function off and just make it a traditional repeater? Yeah, I mentioned it a minute ago. I could do that. It's just easy to turn on the repeat function. It is certified to the FCC to do that. But yeah, if I had to pin out.
But I have another question for you. Did you check the FCC certification number? Did you check to see that it was for real?
Oh.
No, because I had one radio from a company, and I went to the FCC site.
Yeah.
The number was bogus.
Well, I checked one of them. And it was. I don't know if I checked the Retrievus or not.
That's probably
so
okay.
I'll do that. But to answer Mark's question, yeah, I could turn it off, and I could do some interfacing between. I hate to use audio from the speaker out, but since these radios have no other auxiliary outputs, I'd have to basically use speaker out from audio, which would work. And but then I would also need to pick up some type carrier operated relay. So when a receiver receives, I need something to key. And since there's no DIN plug on the back or nothing like that where I can pick that up, the only other thing I could possibly do is like this is received. What I could do is use Vox. I would have to put Vox on the transmitter, and when the audio came on the receiver, it would keep the transmitter up. I don't like using Vox for that.
Yeah, that's risky.
But I mean, it could be done. I thought about that.
The only problem with using Vox is that you may want to use if you want to use a tone. You're also going to need a tone decoder.
I was going to say, back in the day, didn't we do something where we were actually able to detect the noise, the background noise if a receiver was open, and use that as the COR?
Well, and a lot of the repeater building, we would come off the discriminator.
Yeah, but I mean, even just off the audio, the audio is going to change when it's open.
Yeah.
Well, these radios all have squelch, and so you can make it so it break. First of all, it has to break squelch.
Yeah.
And then after it breaks squelch, if you have a tone, you can have a tone decoder.
Yeah, but I mean, even without a
If it
tone,
passes, so if it gets through both of those, but gets over both of those hurdles, yeah, then you can turn on your transmitter and assume it's okay to repeat.
yeah. But I want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
say,
I
back
could,
in the
yeah,
day,
yeah,
we would
yeah.
do it from just background noise.
Tone would be a way to circumvent not having a carrier operated relay interface. Yep. Let's see. You built a low power. Yeah, Bill's saying you can build up a low power UHF transmitter with voice ID. That's what I said earlier, Bill. I could use just this little radio oddity here and put the ID on it and just key the repeater up every few minutes with it and let it ID. But we're kind of in the beginning stages here to the VHF repeater. The UHF repeater I had was a Motorola micro repeater that I had, and it was a commercial made repeater. That was on UHF, but
well, now here's another thought. Does somebody make a controller that would use the microphone connectors?
Well, I mean, I fixed to mention a controller. You can buy a controller; they're coming down cheap now, but you still need something to trigger, like the COR or whatever.
Well, their controller may handle that through the receive audio.
Well, through the receive audio maybe, but now you're
because I'm going to say, back in the day, we had a circuit that would detect when there was even background noise on that receive audio.
Well, Vox will do that. Vox will do that. If noise comes up, Vox will.
Yeah, but I mean, a Vox, but not a voice-operated Vox.
Like Brett is saying, put a tone on there and let the tone key it up.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not a fan of tones.
I'm not either. Well, I homebrewed a controller many years ago, and man, it did everything. And you started off small, and basically,
I think we all did.
Basically, you take your 555s and your 567 chips and stuff, and you build up a little timer circuit. This is your timeout. If anybody keys longer than 3 minutes, it's going to drop out, and it'll reset if somebody lets off the mic. Okay. Well, then you add another chip in there that measures that time, that pulse there, and it takes you out to the 10-minute time, and it takes you into something that's going to cycle your idea that you actually homebrew.
Yeah, and then the old diode matrix for the CW.
And then I built into that circuitry high power, low power. For instance, we were down at a water tower where we were, and we did have a solid state receiver in there and transmitter, and I think we had a big car battery in there to run it on, but we ran on 110 volts, and the idea, when the ID would ID, it would ID with a high pitch, and that high pitch says, hey, we're on high power. And then if the power goes off, the relays click, and the IDer comes on, and ID's in a low pitch, and we go, oh man, the repeater's on low power. It's on 1 watt now instead of 30 watts. And then of course we built up a circuit, Glenn, and I still got it here.
Oh yeah, I built them all.
We got a circuit here that was for control. It was called one ring on and off. And Pat Lane, if you know Pat Lane, he was the engineer at WKNO radio TV station here. 50 years ago, I went down and met with Pat, and we drew it out, and it was a one ring on off, and it used timer chips. I think it had 3 timer chips. And I don't know how he did it, but no calculations, no nothing. He must have just remembered it. He drew his sucker out and he put 47K here and a 10K here, and what it does is, and then we hooked to a phone line, and when the phone would ring one time, it would sense that, and then if you hang up, no more rings, it would know that was only a one ring, and it would turn the repeater off. And if we want to turn the repeater on, you dial it up, one ring only, hang it up, and the repeater would turn on. So that's the way we control the repeater. Now, hey, here's a funny story about that. This was, I don't know what year this, 1976, the bicentennial. The big Memphis newspaper calls me because we had a phone line. I'm in West Memphis. West Memphis and Memphis was in the same phone book. The phone book's about that thick. And they called me. Well, So let me tell you, first I got a phone line put in, okay? And we didn't want to pay extra to have it what do you call it, a private number? You know, to have a private number, you had to pay extra. And of course, we were hams, we didn't have any money, so we just made it a regular number. But we made up a name. And my friend's name was Sam. My name is Tom. So we wanted it to be the last name in the phone book. And there was a circle in the phone book, a circle. So we said, let's call it T.S. Zorkel with an O. All right. So that's how we bought our phone line. Okay. Now guess what? At the bicentennial, 1976, the newspaper calls me and says, Mr. Zorkel, I'd like to talk to you a minute. We would like to we're writing an article on a new Memphis phone book, A to Z, and you're Mr. Z, and we'd like to put that in the newspaper. And I go, oh man, no, I don't want you putting that in the newspaper. Here, it's a private thing. It's not a real phone. It's I said, well, it is public knowledge. I said, yeah. Well, they never put it in the phone book, but we were T.S. Oracle. Now, hey, when I called the phone company to get that line installed, I talked to the lady on the phone. Yeah, I'd like to order a phone line. Okay, very good. And what name would you like to put in? And I said, well, let's put it in T.S. Zorkel. And she said, listen, I said, let's put it in T.S. Zorkel. And she says, is that T as in Tom, S as in Sam? All right, so that's the story there. Now, one other thing is that Kroger over there used to give like a $5 gift certificate or something every week if they pick your name. And T.S. Zorkel won $5 over there one time. And I went down to collect the money, and I said, I don't really have any ID to say I'm T.S. Zorkel, but I'm T.S. Zorkel. And I've got the newspaper clipping over here, I think, still in the drawer where T.S. Zorkel got his $5. So anyway, back to my control circuitry. We kept adding and adding modules to it. It was on a great big old board here, the little purple board, all the holes. We kept adding. Then we added 3. What is it? Any 567s, the tone decoders, or the
tone decoder, yeah.
Yeah, the tone decoder. So with 3 any 567 tone decoders, you could decode all the touch tone digits, and you tune those for the vertical 1, 2, 3, and then you tune the others for horizontal. Well, I guess we had 7 in there, didn't we?
You'd have to have 7.
Yeah, we had 7 in there, 3 across and 4 down. But then they combine through other chips. So when you hit a 6, you get the up down tone and you get the horizontal tone, and then it gives you the 6 and so forth. So oh man.
Nowadays, if you got a Pi, you can just do a little audio FFT and just pull that.
Well, back
you don't need all the chips.
Back 50 years ago.
There's now a single chip that does all that.
50 years ago, we didn't have any of this stuff,
Oh yeah. Oh, there are tone decoder chips too. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't even have really real decoder chips. We had to build a decoder.
Right. Yes.
Now you can buy a chip that does all the digits, but oh man. Okay, so man, hey, we've had fun tonight, guys.
Yeah.
We've talked long enough, and look, hey, we kept Jim up here.
Well, I did. Glenn caught me, I think, a couple of times,
really?
with my head down, but he kicked me under the table and got me awake.
Oh, well, anyway, we all made it tonight, man. We had a good time, and I had a good time tonight, thinking about old stuff like that. And
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Well, guys, I guess we'll see you next week. And let's see. As WDA IOL said, he knew a guy named Zirkel, that's Z-E-R. It'd have been Zirkel. No, yeah, that Zirkel. Then there'd be the Zirkel with the I, and then of course we were Zorkel with the O.
That's funny.
Oh man.
This weekend, there's going to be a big ham fest here in the Rocky Mountain region in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I'm going to be there. There's going to be all kinds of
people
I'd
there.
love to do that. I can't make it. That's too far. But you know what? I'm going to the Russellville Ham Fest. That's
When is
my
that
that's
one?
my that's my place where I went to college over here. It's about 200 miles west of here. I'm going to the Russellville Hamfest on March the 3rd, and
Just
that
gonna
will be
say that I might have to go with you.
yeah, that would be March the 3rd. It'd be there at Dardanelle, right there on the Arkansas River, which would be cool. And then hey, I saw another Hamfest here in Tennessee. Trenton, Tennessee is having a Hamfest March 16th. That's just about, I don't know, 20-minute drive north of Jackson, Tennessee.
Oh, that'll be
So
fun.
that's on the 16th. I may try to go to that. So, I want to
And
get
then,
after
then,
some.
then this spring, there's going to be Joe Eisenberg's home Hamfest in Omaha. No, I'm sorry, it's Lincoln.
Yeah,
Lincoln, Nebraska.
you guys are just too far out that way. And then
Yeah.
you got the continental divide between us and you guys. It's tough for us to get there, man.
Yeah, it's west of the Continental Divide is west
Oh, is
of
it
us.
west? Is it west of you? Well, it's still
Yeah.
too far, man.
It's still if you were driving, it's still a day and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is a ways.
First week of March, Chris says we got the Greater Houston Hamfest, then in Roseburg, Tennessee. That'll probably be a good one. But I won't be going to that either. That's a long ways down. That's as far as Dayton is to.
Yeah,
go
I
down
haven't
there.
looked at anything beyond Orlando at this point, other than Dayton.
Hoxie Hamfest. Let's see. I don't know when that is.
Yeah, I'm going to try to catch a couple more of the Arkansas Hamfest this year.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to work the hams who are out there trying to do the distance competition at Quartz Fest.
Okay. Cool.
See if I can help them score some points.
Yeah.
Yeah, Quartz Fest is always the weekend of the Memphis Free Fest, so can't do that.
What Quartz Fest kind of got in trouble last year, didn't it? Didn't it get muddy or something out there?
I don't know.
I don't
Wasn't
know.
it Quartz Fest? And it was so muddy out there, they couldn't even get their cars in or out for like a week.
So it was like Woodstock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was kind of like
I think it was
Woodstock.
Quartzville. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
I got a question about a subject, but I don't want to do it publicly.
Okay, let me. I'm gonna go ahead and kill the show here, guys. Good night, everybody
Okay.
out there. Good night. We've had a good time.